Hey there, Tim Avery here with Visual Testaments. Take 4 minutes and read these amazing stories in Mark 5. I'm in the Passion Translation. Chapter 5, verse 21. 2 miracles, healing and resurrection. After Jesus returned from across the lake, a huge crowd of people quickly gathered around him on the shoreline. Just then a man saw that it was Jesus. So he pushed through the crowd and threw himself down at his feet. His name was Jairus, a Jewish official who was in charge of the synagogue. He pleaded with Jesus, saying over and over, "Please come with me. My little daughter is at the point of death, and she's only 12 years old. Come, lay your hands on her and heal her, and she will live." Immediately, Jesus went with him, and the huge crowd followed, pressing in on him from all sides. Now in the crowd that day was a woman who had suffered horribly from continual bleeding for 12 years. She had endured a great deal under the care of various doctors. Yet in spite of spending all she had on their treatments, she was getting worse instead of better. When she heard about Jesus' healing power, she pushed through the crowd and came up from behind him and touched his prayer shawl. For she kept saying to herself, "If I could touch even his clothes, I know I will be healed." As soon as her hand touched him, her bleeding immediately stopped. She knew it, for she could feel her body instantly being healed of her disease. Jesus knew at once that something or someone had touched him, for he felt the power that always surged around him had passed through him for someone to be healed. He turned and spoke to the crowd, saying, "Who touched my clothes?" His disciples answered, "What do you mean, who touched you? Look at this huge crowd. They're all pressing up against you." But Jesus' eyes swept across the crowd, looking for the one who had touched him for healing. When the woman who experienced this miracle realized what had happened to her, she came before him, trembling with fear, and threw herself down at his feet, saying, "I was the one who touched you." And she told him of her story of what just happened. Then Jesus said to her, "Daughter, because you dared to believe, your faith has healed you. Go with peace in your heart and be free from your suffering." And before he had finished speaking, people arrived from Jairus' house and pushed through the crowd to give Jairus the news. "There's no need to trouble the master any longer. Your daughter has died." But Jesus refused to listen to what they were told and said to the Jewish official, "Don't yield to fear. All you need to do is keep on believing." So they left for his home, but Jesus didn't allow anyone to go with them except Peter and the 2 brothers, Jacob and John. When they arrived at the home of the synagogue ruler, they encountered a noisy uproar among the people, for they were all weeping and wailing. Upon entering the home, Jesus said to them, "Why all this grief and weeping? Don't you know the girl is not dead but merely asleep?" Then everyone began to ridicule and make fun of him, but he threw them all outside. Then he took the child's father and mother and his 3 disciples and went into the room where the girl was lying. He tenderly clasped the child's hand in his and said to her in Aramaic, "Talith koum," which means, "Little girl, wake up from the sleep of death." Instantly, the 12-year-old girl sat up, stood to her feet, and started walking around the room. Everyone was overcome with astonishment in seeing this miracle. Jesus had them bring her something to eat, and he cautioned them repeatedly that they were to tell no one about what had happened.